Chapter 6 of Battle for the Stars by Edmond Hamilton. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Battle for the Stars. Chapter 6. Behind Tonser came an older man, as gray and solid and rough at the edges as an old brick. He could have been an Earthman, and probably was. He was loaded down with a porto and some other piece of equipment in a carrying case slung over his shoulders. Taking no chances at all, but allowing himself to feel a deep and vicious pleasure, Kirk fired from behind the table. Even so, warned by some faint sound or perhaps only by the instinct of the hunter, Tonser swung toward him in the instant before the burst of energy hit. He did not quite have time to fire. The impetus of the turn made him hurtle halfway across the room to hit the floor headlong. The brick-like man was slower. He had only managed to open his mouth and lift his hand halfway toward his armpit when Kirk's second blast dropped him quietly where he stood. Kirk got up. He found that he was shaking. He looked down at Tonser, thinking how easily a man could die, flexing his fingers in a hungry way. Lillian came into the open doorway, and he said angrily, "You were to stay back there." Her eyes did not leave his face. She murmured, "Yes, I did wrong." Then, looking at the sprawled bodies, "Are they dead?" "We're not out on the sector frontier," Kirk growled. "I wish we were. But here on these old planets they take violence seriously. No, I just used stunning bursts on them." He rummaged the house until he found wire, and bound the hands of the two men very securely behind them. Then he searched them. He did not find any documents, which was no surprise. He removed a shocker from the brick-like man and took it and the porto and the heavy carrying case far out of reach. The carrying case contained a Vera-ray projector with its tripod collapsed. Possibly the same one Tonser had tried to use on him in the cluster world. Tonser seemed extremely fond of the Vera-ray. Probably, in his business, he never traveled without one. He gave Lillian the shocker that Tonser had dropped. "Watch them. Back in a moment." He went out and rapidly, carefully searched the grounds of the old farmhouse. He found the sonic device squatting heavily behind a bush. He stood by it for some moments, perfectly still, listening, but there was no sound except the faint stirring of the breeze. There did not seem to be anyone else around. Tonser and the Earthman must have come alone. Kirk frowned. He picked up the sonic device and stood for a second longer, uneasy but baffled. There was no sign of an air car. They must have landed far back in the woods to avoid betraying themselves by the noise of the motors. But he could not search the whole woods, not tonight. He went back to the house. "They're coming around," said Lillian. She was sitting in a chair in front of the two bound men, watching them. She rocked back and forth in a rhythmic motion, making the old floorboards squeak. "Look," she said, in a voice just a little too high. "I found out what this queer chair is for. It's rather pleasant." "I don't find it so," said Tonser suddenly. "The creaking irritates me." He opened his eyes, and Kirk had the feeling that he had been keeping them closed for some time, shamming, while he took stock of the situation. "Well," he said to Kirk, "I'm an acknowledged expert on the sonobeam. Would you mind telling me how you did it?" Kirk said, "We had warning. A friend of mine named Tom." He motioned Lillian to get up. "Go on in the other room, dear. I don't think you'd enjoy this." She looked at him as though he was someone she had just met and was not sure she liked. "Try to understand," he said. "I don't do this sort of thing every day. It's hardly ever necessary." "Of course," she said. She went into the next room, and he shut the door behind her. Then he sat down in the rocking chair, with the shocker held ready in his hand. Kirk looked at Tonser. "I'm a peaceful man," he said, "visiting my ancestral home. What did you want with me?" Tonsor smiled. There was something about him that made Kirk more and more uneasy, a lack of concern, a deep-based confidence that didn't fit a man in his position. Tonsor said gently, "You are the commander of the 5th Squadron, Lyra Sector, awaiting orders from your governor. You are wasting your time." Kirk's nerves tightened painfully, but he kept his face impassive. "Go on," he said. "I'm listening." "Furtius agent was supposed to meet you here secretly with certain information." Tonsor spoke with deliberate clarity, as one who explains some problem to a child. "He is not coming. We've known who he is for some time, and I got to him before he ever left New York." He nodded to the Vera-ray projector across the room. "I used that extremely useful invention on him, and of course he told me all about this place and how he was supposed to meet you here. So I came instead." Kirk looked at the Vera-ray himself, but Tonsor shook his head. "It wouldn't do you any good. The particular piece of information you need, namely when and where to move, is not known to me, and your contact man had not received it yet either. When it does come through, one of our men will get it. Probably already have." Tonsor's eyes looked up brightly at Kirk, the eyes of the adroit and wily man measuring the honest clod for another defeat. "You might just as well free me, Kirk. It was a good try, but your cause is hopeless now." "Not as long as I'm on my feet," said Kirk, getting up. He was a very angry man. "Not as long as the 5th will follow me. If I don't get orders, I'll make my own." "No," said a familiar voice behind him. "The 5th isn't going anywhere, Commander." Kirk whirled around. Joe Garstang was standing in the front door. He had a shocker in his hand, pointing with rock-like steadiness at Kirk's breast. "Drop your weapon," said Garstang. A red haze swept over Kirk's vision. Through it he saw Garstang, wavering and distorted. Blood hammered in his temples. "You," he said, so choked with rage at this enormity that he could hardly form the words. "My own captain, my friend, traitor, working for him." Distant and strange in the red mist, Garstang's face became twisted as though with pain. "I'm sorry," he said, and fired. Kirk fell onto the floor. Garstang must have pressed the stud back to a light charge, because Kirk was still conscious and only partly paralyzed. His own weapon dropped out of his nerveless fingers. Garstang came and kicked it away. Kirk flopped around like a gaffed fish, trying to get his reflexes working again. He heard the inner door open, and then Lillian screamed, partly in fear but mostly in fury, a purely animal sound. She went for Garstang, ignoring his shocker with a single-minded intent to kill. Her own hands were empty. She was content with them. Garstang dropped his weapon in his pocket and caught her, holding her hands away from his face and eyes. "Please," he said. "Please, Lillian. He's not dead. He's not even hurt." He turned to Kirk. "You should have dropped your shocker. I told you." There was a fresh onslaught, and a red line sprang out on Garstang's cheek. It began to drip slowly, small bright drops against the leathery brown. "Kirk, for God's sake, call her off," he said. Kirk managed to sit up. He mumbled, shook his head 2 or 3 times, and finally the words were intelligible. "I'm all right. Come here, Lillian. Help me up." She relaxed then, dropping her hands. Garstang let her go. She hissed at him in furious Vagan and then ran to Kirk. "I should have used that weapon," she said. "I should have killed him. I forgot it. I'm sorry." She began to struggle, trying to lift him. Garstang went immediately into the next room. Through the open door, Kirk saw him look around and then pocket the shocker that Lillian had laid down and forgotten. Lillian didn't notice, and he said nothing. What was the use? "Push that chair over here," Kirk said. "Now, don't worry. This'll wear off. I'll be all right in just a few minutes. Yes, that's it." He sat in the rocker, rubbing his numb right arm with his left, trying to stamp his foot, but he couldn't move it yet. He glared up at Garstang, who had come and was standing near Tonsor, looking from him to Kirk with a faint frown. Tonsor had not spoken, and he did not speak now. He sat where he was and waited, and watched them. "Well," said Kirk, "what are you waiting for, Joe? Go ahead and untie him." "No," said Garstang, shaking his head slowly. "No, I'm not going to untie him." "Why not?" demanded Kirk bitterly. "Or have you decided to double-cross him, too?" "I don't think you understand," said Garstang. "I'm not working with Tonsor. I'm not working for Solaremos at all." Kirk stared, for a moment surprised out of his rage. "But then who?" "My loyalty," said Garstang, "is to Earth." "Oh, hell, that doesn't make sense," said Kirk. "You're no more Earthman than I am." "I am, Kirk. You never knew it, but I'm all Earthman. And I've been in Earth intelligence for 14 years. Garstang went on slowly. "Earth may be old and partly helpless, but she is not so blind as to let 5 powerful, hungry governors go unwatched. We've seen this grab coming for a long time. The only thing we didn't know, and couldn't find out, was which one of the 5 would try it first. But now I think we know." "What do you think you know?" said Kirk. Garstang looked at him steadily. "Ferdius was the only governor who sent a squadron to Earth for the commemoration. Why?" Kirk cried, "To protect Earth from Solaremos! It's Orion who's going to try the grab." "I thought you'd say that, Kirk. Maybe you believe it. But ask yourself, if that's so, why didn't Ferdius warn us openly? Why did he have you sneak off to this undercover rendezvous?" Garstang shook his head. "No, Kirk. I think you're an honest man. And I think you've been had. I think you've been had all the way." End of Chapter 6.